Okay, thank you all for joining us for the GRA Everything You Need to Know About Academic Options After Your Bachelor's Degree workshop. Joining us today is Dr. Dave Beasley, Admissions and Recruitment Specialist at the Graduate College. He's going to discuss with us some of the advantages of graduate school, as well as how to apply and how to secure financial support. So I'm going to hand it off to him to get started.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. As Alexa said, I'm Dr. Dave Beasley. I'm the Recruitment and Admissions Specialist here with the UNLV Graduate College. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, excellent. All right. Always good to know I'm not sort of speaking here into the void. So as Alexis mentioned, I do have a presentation here for you. This is, everything you need to know about academic options after your bachelor's degree. And of course, there's a lot of things that are available to you. And so I just want to go over them and sort of make sure that everybody's on the same page here. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's in a graduate or professional school application, and we'll talk about sort of how to pay for graduate and professional school as well. So what I've got is a little bit of an overview, but I do want to spend a few minutes talking about UNLV because I do want all of you to definitely to think about UNLV. For your graduate school. It's obviously, you all know that UNLV is a great place to be an undergraduate, and hopefully today I can tell you a little bit about how it's a great place to be a graduate student as well. On that front, I'll mention that I myself am a grad rebel grad. I'm a doctoral alum of the English program here at UNLV. So I've been sort of, I know that of which I speak. In addition, though, let me also say that we're always happy to be a resource for you for whatever graduate or professional school program plans that you have. I do want all of you to come to UNLV, but more importantly, I want you all to go to the program that's going to be the best fit for you. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what graduate or professional school is. Sometimes you'll hear these terms used interchangeably. There are some differences though, and I just want to make sure that we're all sort of familiar with what we're talking about when we talk about graduate school and what we talk about when we talk about professional school. So graduate and professional degrees are advanced courses of study, and they focus on a specific field, discipline, and/or career. And so we'll talk about different degree types, and then we'll get into some of the differences between graduate and professional school. But right off the bat, you see here in graduate school, we have two main degree types, right? We have master's and doctoral degrees. So a master's degree is usually more of a generalist degree, and it's focused on career or discipline-oriented skills. So, a Master of Arts degree, a Master of Science degree, the Master of Business Administration, Master of Healthcare Administration, things like this. But most master's degrees are going to fall into that Master of Arts or Master of Sciences category. Generally speaking, it takes a couple of years to get to a master's. We'll get to more of that as we go. Then there's doctoral degrees, right? So if you want to be one of these folks like me, right, you want to get a PhD or an EdD, something like that, then you go do a doctoral degree. And those are heavily research-focused degrees that are really designed to create new knowledge or to fill current gaps in knowledge in an industry or field. So again, that's if you're true masochists and you really want more suffering, you go do a doctorate, and we'll talk about some of the things you might need that for as we go. And then there's professional degrees. Now, professional degrees are a little bit different. If you want to be a doctor, but like a medical doctor, you go to professional school, right? So professional school is entirely focused on training for a specific career. So when we talk about professional schools, we're talking about medical school. We're talking about dental school. We're talking about law school, right? So like a JD is what a law degree is. And then an MD obviously is a medical degree. And so there are other types of professional schools as well, but that really is focused on career. So let's talk about what makes a graduate degree versus what makes a professional degree. So it's really a matter of emphasis, okay? Graduate degrees emphasize research and the production or extension of knowledge in a field, while professional degrees emphasize training for a specific career. Now, that said, if you do a graduate degree, you're not just going to sit around in the library the whole time. You're going to have lots of opportunities for professional development and career training, okay? If you do a professional degree, you're going to have lots of research opportunities, okay? My fiance is an attorney. She will be more than happy to tell you about all the hours that she spent in the law library doing research when she was in law school. So even though she did a professional degree program, she got lots of research skills. Even though I did a graduate degree program, I got lots of career-oriented training and skills as well. So again, it's really just a matter of emphasis here. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits of this. Now that we kind of know what we're talking about, let's talk about why people do these things. So first of all, there's increased employment opportunities, right? So some jobs require that you have an advanced degree. Sometimes it's nice to have one, but it's not required. Other jobs absolutely stone cold require an advanced degree. So if you want to be a college professor, I would definitely recommend thinking about a doctorate. Obviously, if you want to be an attorney, you need to go to law school. If you want to be a doctor, you definitely need to go to medical school, okay? So there are, you're just going to have more jobs that are available to you. Also, there's a lower overall unemployment rate. So if you look at how unemployment breaks down by education level, the more education you have, the lower the overall unemployment rate tends to be. And also, there's also, if you do find yourself between jobs, you won't stay that way for very long. I always sort of think of it as like you reach a certain level of education and you're really never going to be unemployed again long term, outside of some totally cataclysmic event happening. You don't hear a lot about people with master's degrees in accounting, right? You don't hear a lot about unemployed accountants, things like that, all right? Because you've just got so much education that somebody will always hire you. It really does help you stand out from the crowd. So again, we've talked about you may need this for certain jobs. There are other jobs where it might be really helpful. So only 13.1% of the population holds an advanced degree, a graduate or professional degree. You can compare that to between 33 and 35% of the overall population that holds a degree, and you can that holds a bachelor's degree, and you can see you're much rarer for employers, right? You're going from 1 in 3 to about 1 in 7, right? These degrees are portable. You can take them pretty much anywhere, right? You're interested in doing an MBA degree, you want to be a biologist, right? You want to be a chemist, you want to be a literary critic like myself, you want to be an attorney, right? No matter where you go, they're going to need folks who do that. Now, there are some cases where, if you do something like couples and family therapy or law, right, where if you move states, you may need to get licensed again, right? You might need to take the bar exam if you're an attorney. But there are also, national exams. There are some things that you can do. And of course, you'd be well prepared to take those exams and become licensed in those states. But these are really portable degrees. Also, the very fact that you have a graduate or professional degree shows potential employers that you have transferable success skills, right? So whether those are research skills, self-discipline, leadership, communication, perseverance, all of those things are really sitting on any resume or CV that has a graduate degree on it, right? Obviously, there are not doctorates in recruiting, okay? Or if there are, I am not aware of them. My doctorate is in 18th century British Gothic fiction, but there are skill sets that I learned doing that degree that I use every single day as a recruitment and admissions specialist, right? Not the least of which is, communication, right? Sort of learning to speak to large groups, learning how to take really sort of complex ideas and break them down into ways that are sort of understandable for non-experts, right? Because not everybody has spent 4 years of their life in libraries learning about old books like I have. And then finally, it's a chance for you to take control of your future. This is going to make you so much more marketable and sought after by employers. There are times when people graduate from graduate or professional school and they get to pick what they want to go do. They may have headhunters coming for them saying like, hey, we really want you to join our firm. We really want you to join our team, right? Or it may be a case where you're getting ready to graduate, you apply for several jobs, and 3 or 4 of those jobs want to hire you, and then you get to pick where you want to work, right? And you get to pick how much money you want to make. So that's kind of cool. So let's figure out, now that we sort of talked about some of the great things about this, let's talk a little bit about how to do this, right? So first of all, the graduate school admissions process and the professional school admissions process are totally different from the undergraduate admissions process. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit as we go. But there are tons of graduate programs out there, and some folks continue in the field that they were in as undergraduates. That's what I did. A lot of folks do that, but a lot of folks change gears completely as well. So first of all, what I encourage people to do when looking at graduate or professional school is to think about your outcome. What kind of career do you want? Now, obviously, if you want to be a medical doctor, then there's one route there, right? You go to medical school, okay? If you want to be an attorney, you're going to law school, right? Now, if you want to be a college professor, you can be a college professor in a lot of different things, right? So you may think about that. If you want to be more in the business world, there's a lot of different directions that you can go with graduate degrees that can be helpful to you in the business world, right? You know, maybe you're into marketing, so maybe you think about doing an MBA, or maybe you think more about going into like communication studies, say, and sort of do marketing from that perspective. So there's different ways to get there, right? So I would really encourage you all, again, to think beyond your bachelor's degree. Don't feel like because your undergraduate degree is in history or in biology that you have to study history or biology at the graduate level. You certainly can. There are great history and biology programs across the country, including right here at UNLV, but you have some different options. Right. So what I would think about is think about different fields that you think you might be interested in working in and reach out to professionals in those fields. You might think about things that complement your skill sets and then say, you know, who do I know that works in these fields? You know, ask somebody maybe if you can have a few minutes of their time to you know, to kind of to pick their brain or to go over different options for them. Find out the degrees that they have, right? Say, hey, you know, like, do you have to get a special degree for that job? What were your degree options? How does that degree, you know, how did that help you? Of course, you can always schedule a meeting with a member of our recruitment and admissions team. You can email us at gradrecruitment@unlv.edu or call us at 702-895-4543. And we'll be happy to sit down and go over different program options with you and talk about what might be a good place for you. Now, when it comes time for the application process, once you've sort of determined what program or programs you're interested in, and specifically what degree or degrees. And I'm not sure if you all can hear any sound bleeding through right now. If you can, they are doing construction below me, so it's not feedback on your end. Hopefully they'll stop quickly. But anyway, so when it comes time to looking at programs themselves, you want to research and apply to programs rather than schools. So when you're an undergrad, right, sort of finishing up in high school or looking to come back to school, maybe you were out for a few years and are coming back, you looked at universities, right? You said, okay, UNLV is going to be the place for me. I'm going to apply to UNLV. But with grad school and professional school, it's a little bit different because you would apply to programs rather than schools. Each university is going to have a slightly different system. Some are heavily centralized, and that's where like everything runs through their graduate college. Some are entirely decentralized, where very little runs through their graduate college. UNLV is kind of in the middle. All right, so we're a semi-centralized system where everything comes through us first, but programs make individual admissions decisions. I did my master's degree at a different school, and that was incredibly decentralized, right? Where I almost had no interaction with the graduate college there, whatever. Then there are other schools where all your interactions through the graduate college. So it's good to know sort of what you're looking at. Now, you want to start narrowing down your programs of interest early. I know all of you that are part of the Grad Rebel Advantage program have at least 60 credits. So some of you are juniors, some of you are seniors. If you're looking to apply, if you're seniors and you're looking to apply for fall, boy, you really got to start picking up the pace and going now. If you're looking to apply for fall 2023, if you're looking to apply for spring 2023, something like that, you do have a little bit more time, but you do want to start this process early, right? Figure out what you want to study and start looking for programs. If you're not sure where to start, petersons.com is an amazing resource. And I'm going to share this presentation with Alexis and with her team afterwards so that they can share it with you all that are with us here today. So I've got some links here. I want you all to have this presentation so you can click on it and get all the cool stuff you need. Petersons.com is a great place to start. You can search by school size, you can search by degree type, you can search by specific degree program, you can search by setting, like, hey, do you want to be in a more rural setting, right? I did my undergraduate in the middle of the woods. That can be kind of fun. You know, do you want to be like in a large urban setting like UNLV, right? You really want to be sort of in the thick of it all, right? You can look there. You can look by school size. How many students do you want it to have? Things like that. Always good to talk to your faculty as well. Some of them probably went to UNLV. A lot of them went elsewhere. They can tell you about different programs. They can tell you what they liked. They can tell you what they didn't like. And chances are they probably still know a lot about the programs that they participated in. So they can probably tell you what that program is like today. Um, Also, if there are grad students that you know, especially in a field you're interested in, talk to them. I mean, that's you will get no better information than from actual grad students in the program. I do my best to be an honest broker with everybody I talk to, but I get that, at the end of the day, I'm the guy that's paid to tell you how great UNLV is, and I do think it's great. But I encourage you to reach out to faculty and grad students. I think they'll bear me out on that, but they can also tell you a lot about what's happening on the ground in your program. Most programs also have a designated coordinator or faculty member that's in charge of recruitment. It's usually listed on their website. Any of the UNLV program websites, it's all the way at the bottom. You can find out who your grad coordinator is. I always encourage you to reach out to them. Don't feel like you're bothering people. A lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to bother them. I'm sure they're super busy. They are super busy talking to people just like you who want to be a part of their program. So get in the mix. If they're listed as the program contact, they want to hear from you. They want to know that you're interested in their program. So by all means, reach out to them. Always a good idea to start looking at application requirements. There's going to be a lot of similarities, and I'm going to talk here in just a couple of minutes about some common elements of the grad school application process, but there are going to be variances between programs too, okay? And most people apply to more than one graduate program. So some programs may require a GRE or a GMAT or another standardized test, others may not. Some programs will have a really specific prompt for a personal statement, others will not. One program might want 2 letters of recommendation, another program might want 3 or even 4. So again, it's really good to start looking at this stuff early because it's going to take you time to get this together. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you email a graduate program and ask for a deadline extension outside of extraordinary circumstances, the answer is no, right? Their deadline is their deadline, and that's it. So remember that those are non-negotiable, and I would, you want to plan to have everything ready to go by the deadline. Okay, so common aspects of the graduate school application. A personal statement. This is usually 1 to 2 pages, double spaced, and I'll go over some resources here on campus for you all for these as well. If anybody is interested in a counseling program, something like clinical psychology, couple and family therapy, clinical mental health counseling, things like that, those programs can be a little bit different. Sometimes they want a little bit longer statement, but generally speaking, you're looking at 1 to 2 pages, double spaced. These are really, really tricky to write, but don't worry, there are great resources here on campus to help. Letters of recommendation. Most programs require letters of recommendation. If it's a graduate program, they're really going to be looking for recommendation letters from professors. So it's good to be in the habit of, for lots of reasons, right? It's good to be in the habit of talking to your faculty, getting to know your instructors. Go to office hours. I cannot emphasize that enough. Go visit people in office hours, spend some time with them. If you're, if you're thinking about graduate school, and I assume you are, if you're here today, right? Tell them that. Let them know that you're interested in doing graduate work. They can maybe help guide and direct you. They can also, though, they'll kind of tell them, hey, this person might ask me for a letter of recommendation. If it's a professional program, it might be a professor, but sometimes professional programs are actually more interested in your work experience in the field. So they might want something from a supervisor as well. So just as a general rule for letters of recommendation, though, you want your letter, regardless if it's a supervisor or professor, you want it to be from somebody who's evaluated you in some capacity or another. So your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your best friends, any of these folks, these are not people to ask for letters of recommendation. Okay. I certainly hope that they would recommend you. I'm sure they would, but that doesn't mean a lot to programs, right? So you want to be, again, somebody who's been in a position to evaluate your work. You will need transcripts from all colleges and universities you've attended. Some programs or schools, UNLV is among them, will look at your application with just unofficial transcripts, and then you'll order official transcripts later. Some programs will want official transcripts from the start. So you want to be familiar with that process. If you went to UNLV and you apply to UNLV, you don't have to send us official transcripts. We'll just grab them for you. But what you do want to do is familiarize yourself with the ordering process for all of your schools. So, if you went to CSN and then UNLV, each of them is going to have a slightly different process. If you went someplace else before coming to UNLV, right? And if you want to find the information about your transcripts, Google your school's name and register and put transcripts and registrar in there. And the first thing should pop up should be the school's registrar page. If you can find that registrar page, I promise you there will be information on there about how to order your transcripts. And then finally, there are standardized tests. And depending on the kind of program you're interested in, you may or may not have to take a standardized test. And the standardized test may vary. So the most common standardized test for graduate school programs is the GRE. Some programs require it, some programs don't. If you're looking more towards business school, that's the GMAT. If you're looking at law school, congratulations, you're going to take the LSAT. If you're looking at medical school, you're going to take the MCAT. I know there is, and I know there's one for dental school as well. So all of this information will be readily available on the school's website, though. And a lot of times they'll even tell you specific scores that they're looking for. All right, so let's talk about how to get all of this stuff, right? How to get prepared for all of this. There are amazing resources. So I know that part of your requirements for the Grad Rebel Advantage program is to visit some of these places, right? So I know you're supposed to come by and see the folks at the Writing Center. They are a great resource for any of your papers. They're also a great resource for personal statements. Just about all of their consultants down there are either current graduate students or have graduate degrees. So they've written these personal statements. They know how tough they are. And all those folks are into graduate school. So clearly their statement worked. So go down there and let them give you a hand with that. You don't even have to have anything written to go down there, and that's true for any of your anything you take down there, any of your work. You can just go down there and brainstorm ideas with them. Also, if you need to prepare a resume or a CV, they're a great place to go once you've got your format down. And I'll talk about resources for getting formatting down next. So Career Services, great resource for getting your resume formatted. Let them help you format it, then go to the Writing Center for help with the language. Career Services also has a great career handbook and some other materials that are linked there. The Office of Undergraduate Research is a great place to get hooked up with. Those of you that are looking to do doctoral work, especially, research experience is really important. And if you're not sure where to start with that, go to the Office of Undergraduate Research. They have an amazing Research Skills Academy. They can also help you put together a CV and get it formatted right. Do be aware with CVs, resumes are kind of resumes across the board. CVs can vary by discipline a little bit. So the Office of Undergraduate Research can help you there. And then, of course, there's UNLV libraries. So if you're interested in what research in a specific field looks like, each field has a subject librarian at UNLV. And then they also have a lot of test prep resources. So if you need to take one of those tests and you're not sure where to start, they're a great place to start for that. So let's talk about how to pay for it, right? Because it's not enough just to apply. Let's talk about how we pay for it, right? So if you're not familiar with graduate assistantships, boy, have I got news for you, okay? This is about to blow your mind. I'm gonna say something and you're gonna think you misheard me and you didn't, okay? I'm going to tell you that up front. Graduate assistantships are where a university will pay you to go to school, okay? You heard that right, okay? We pay you to go to school. This is the way to go to grad school if possible. So graduate assistantships generally cover the cost of your tuition. They also generally waive out-of-state fees. I was a grad assistant here at UNLV. I moved out here from Virginia. I never paid out-of-state fees because I was a grad assistant. And they include a monthly stipend, usually between $1,000 and $2,000 a month. That's in addition to your tuition. That's not what pays your tuition, okay? So you get your tuition waived and you get paid, and you work like about 20 hours a week is pretty standard. You might teach a class, you might be a lab assistant, you might be a research assistant, you might work in an office on campus. It really depends. Scholarships and fellowships, right? Let's talk about other ways to get free money, okay? So you want to check with your program and the university about the availability of scholarships for graduate students. There is such a thing, or excuse me, there are such things as fellowships. They are highly competitive and they're usually reserved for doctoral students. So if you're going to do a PhD, definitely look into fellowships, see what's available. And I would say apply for everything, okay? The absolute worst thing they can do is tell you no, and you'll be no worse off than you are now. Finally, there's grants. That's free money, and those come in a variety of flavors. So I would say just sort of ask about those things. So there are certain things that you may be eligible for as an undergraduate, like say a Pell Grant, which which you're not really going to be eligible for as a graduate student. In almost all cases, Pell Grants are only for bachelor's degrees. It is possible to get one as a graduate student, but it's nearly impossible, so I wouldn't count it. And then finally, there are loans. So I know that nobody wants to think about taking out loans or more loans if you've got them now, but I would encourage you to fill out the FAFSA every year. And in fact, the FAFSA, if you're looking to go to grad school next year, or just looking, or you're going to come back to UNLV next year, either way, FAFSA opens tomorrow, Friday, October 1st. The priority deadline is November 1st. So take the next 31 days and fill out your FAFSA. Also, FAFSAs are important not just for loans. So if you're not going to take out loans, I would still encourage you to fill out a FAFSA. And the reason for this is there are certain scholarships, fellowships, or grants that may be based on financial need, may be part of the qualifying requirement for it. And your university is not going to be able to determine financial need without your FAFSA. So fill that out even if you're not going to take out loans. Okay, so let's talk about how to get funding. Now that I've told you that there's all this money available, let's talk about how we get you some, okay? So you want to research programs in universities to determine which ones offer graduate assistantships. Most graduate programs have assistantships in some form or another, but not all, so it's worth asking, okay? And if it's really important for you to get that assistantship, you obviously want to pick a program that offers funding through that. You want to prepare the best application possible. So I think we tend to think of the getting into grad school and the paying for grad school as two different processes, and I would encourage you to think of them as one and the same. The reason for this is that programs compete for students. They want the best students. They want the people at the top of their list, and the way that they compete for students is by offering them assistantships, fellowships, scholarships, awards, things like that, right? So if you can be at the top of a program's list, they're going to say, hey, we want you to come and join our program, and we have money for you, right? Because that's how they're going to try to get you to show up. So it's really important that you apply for those assistantships when you're applying for admission. Don't wait until you get admitted, okay? Go ahead and apply as you're going through the process. The reason for that is that a lot of programs give out their money as they do admissions. So they may have been willing to fund you, but if they didn't know you needed money or you wanted money, they may have given it all away. So go ahead and apply for it when you're applying to the programs. Those of you who are going to end up with a doctorate, if you know, like, hey, Dave, I'm doing a doctorate no matter what. Okay, that's my goal. I would encourage you to go straight to PhD if that's possible. A lot of programs do have entry options for those holding a bachelor's degree. And the reason that I say that too is because you'll skip the steps, but you'll pick up a master's along the way, but you won't have to go do a standalone master's. But B, it's a little bit easier to get funded as a PhD student than it is as a master's student. So that's kind of the basics of that. I want to share just a few minutes with you about some of the things that make grad school at UNLV pretty exciting. So we do have the R1 ranking, right? I'm sure you're all aware of that. That's a big deal for you as an undergraduate to have graduated from an R1 university. It's an even bigger deal to graduate from an R1 university as a graduate student, okay? So that's the highest possible ranking that we can have. That puts us in the top 3% of research universities in the United States. It means there's very high research activity happening on our campus. We have more than 175 graduate degree and certificate programs, including more than 40 doctoral and professional programs here at UNLV. So pretty much no matter what you're interested in, we've got a program for you. We are the most diverse university in the country, according to US News and World Report. You all know that UNLV really prides itself on diversity. Diversity is something that a lot of schools talk a big game about, but here at UNLV, we live it each and every day. We do have great professional development opportunities for you through both the Grad Academy and the Graduate and Professional Student Association. These offer certificate programs, career support, workshops, and training. If community work is important to you, if you want to be out in the community doing research, no better place to do it than here. We have the community engagement classification from the Carnegie Foundation for Advancement of Teaching, one of only 119 universities to have that distinction in the country. You'll get the chance to learn from nationally and internationally recognized faculty and highly ranked programs. We have 26 top 100 programs here at UNLV. We have a top 60 Doctor of Physical Therapy program. We have a top 30 Criminology and Criminal Justice PhD program. We have a top 100 English PhD program. We have a top 100 part-time MBA program. Can I interest anybody in a top 10 music program? We have that. We also have the #2 hospitality program in the United States, and it's top 5 in the world. Can I interest anybody in that? Right, so we've got some really great programs here at UNLV. In a lot of our programs, you're going to have the opportunity to partner or intern with local employers. That's how a lot of folks get their first job out of graduate school, is through some of those connections. We have, as you all well know, and I know it's, we're back on campus a little bit this semester. It's been a while since you've been here. So always good to remember we have amazing labs, research centers, and libraries here on campus. So no matter what kind of research you're going to be doing, you're going to have the resources that you need to do that, whether it's laboratory space, whether it's space to conduct, real research in real world environments, whether it's, whether you're somebody like me and is going to be sort of diving into the book stacks for research and things like that, we're going to have it here for you. A lot of our programs are flexible in terms of class times. So a lot of afternoon and evening classes. We have some online programs, some hybrid programs where you're on campus one week and at home the next. We do have lots of opportunities for graduate assistantships here at UNLV. I'll talk about that in just a minute. And then finally, the chance to develop long-lasting relationships with faculty and classmates. Usually, this is where I tell people from outside UNLV how special we are, and we are really special, right? I mean, I keep up with everybody that I did my my doctorate with, but you all already know that. You're already here with us at UNLV. You already know what a special place it is. So let's talk a little bit about cost too. I don't want anybody to think that graduate school costs the same everywhere. It doesn't. So what we have here is a comparison for this past academic year between UNLV and UCLA. And I want to be really clear about something. We don't compare this to knock UCLA in any way. UCLA is an amazing school. It's an absolutely phenomenal school. It has lots of top 100 programs as well. We picked it because it's such a good school. We picked it because, like UNLV, it's an R1 school. We picked it because, like UNLV, it has a very diverse student population. We also picked it because it's a large urban university, just like UNLV is, and because it has a similar number of students and number of programs. So for a UNLV resident, based on full-time enrollment, which is 9 credits as a graduate student, you would be looking at about $6,500, depending on whether or not you needed health insurance and some other things. Some programs do have differential fees, but this is just sort of on average. If you were out of state, which I don't think anybody here is, you'd be looking at about $22,000. Remember, though, that GAs waive those out-of-state fees, okay? For UCLA, for a California resident as a graduate student, you'd be looking at about $17,500 and about $32,500 as a non-resident. So you can see there are significant price differences there, right? So UNLV is a pretty good bargain in addition to being a great school. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can help you pay for school here at UNLV. So at UNLV, we have over $21 million in annual funding for over 1,000 GA positions. We have about 5,000 graduate and professional students on campus. So about 1 in 5 of our students receives a GA. I would encourage you to take that number and shop it around some. I don't know that you'll find many places with a better number than that. I'll also say this, we don't get 5,000 applications every year for GA positions. So a lot of folks in our business school, they work full-time. They're not applying for GAs. Folks in our education college, a lot of them are Clark County school teachers. They're already working full-time. So I don't know how many applications we get. I know it's fewer than 5,000. So as a graduate assistant at UNLV, you'll get an annual stipend between $11,250 and $20,750. You'll get full or partial tuition coverage, right? If you get it for, you get tuition coverage for the semesters you're appointed. If you're appointed for one semester, you get that. If you're appointed for both semesters, you get it then. This will also waive any out-of-state fees while you're a GA. You'll get a registration fee reduction. We will cover all of your health insurance. That's pretty cool. Well, in the past, we've only been able to do part of it. Starting this year, we do all of it. You also get summer tuition benefits, bookstore discounts, access to emergency loans, and more. In addition to that, $21 million for over 1,000 GA positions. We have $5.7 million in annual funding for scholarships, fellowships, and awards for our graduate students. So there's a lot of money available for you here at UNLV. We've been very committed to our graduate students over the years, and we continue that commitment going forward. So we are a small but mighty team here at the UNLV Grad College. So this is all of us. You can see me there, sort of towards the middle on the top row. If anybody's an international student, you'll definitely want to reach out to Lori Filippo, who's our International Admissions and Recruitment Specialist. Matt Montalto is our admissions analyst. So if you have questions about the application itself, Matt is the guy to talk to. Our fearless leader there on the far left is Elizabeth Jost. She's the Associate Director of Admissions. And has forgotten more about graduate admissions than I will ever know. So she's a fantastic resource as well. We have 3 recruitment GAs. If you want to find out what life is like as a GA and sort of how that balance works, I'm sure that either Pemba, Kaya, or Ken would be more than happy to sit down and chat with you. You can always reach out to us. Again, our information is on the slides. So that's everything I have sort of formally here. I know we've got a little bit of time left. So I'm going to quit sharing my screen and turn things back over to Alexis. And I think we've got maybe some questions and answers and things like that to go over.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. If anybody has any questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask, or I've got the chat open and I can ask them for you. I guess that means your presentation was very thorough.
I'm certainly happy to answer questions about any part of the process, about, you know, preparing applications, about paying for grad school, about picking a program. Really, I know it's a lot of information, but you know. Oh yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Christy Kemple. Would you? I plan on doing a master's in accounting, but would you say that a dual master's with an MBA would be feasible, or something that I should look at also, since I plan on going into industry and not just stay in the public accounting world?
Sure. So there are some dual programs with the MBA. I don't believe there's a dual program with accounting, so I think you sort of have to do those back to back. It's technically possible to be enrolled into graduate programs if they're not dual degree, but you'd have to get permission from each program. In terms of that, I wish our GA Ken was here. Ken did the dual degree MBA hotel administration program, and now he's currently in the accounting program. So he could really tell you, Christy, much better than I could. But I would say, you know, generally speaking, we tell people, if you're not sure where you're going to end up in business, do the MBA, because it is the most flexible degree. You will get some accounting courses there. I don't know if your plan is to maybe become like a CPA, you know, like a certified public accountant. I think you would definitely want the accounting masters in that case. But I think that, yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely thinking in the right direction in terms of, and I think you bring up a good point in terms of like having a general idea of where you want to go, but maybe not knowing exactly. You know, it's one thing if you feel like, I want to be an anthropology professor, right? That's a very clear plan. Or I want to be a medical doctor. That's a very clear plan. But if you're thinking in the direction that you are, then it gets a little bit fuzzier, right? So I think definitely thinking about, you know, multiple degrees is a good way of thinking about it. And dual degrees can be a good way of thinking about it as well. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I do think that it's worth thinking about both of those degrees and maybe even trying maybe to do them sort of back to back, or to find a way to do them together. Does that kind of answer that?
Yes, that does, because I'm going to start in public accounting, but I want to move into nonprofit. So I think the business degree would help me in that aspect with it. So that's where I'm kind of headed in my direction. But yeah, so I can just look into that when it's closer then, I guess.
Sure. I'll also mention too, since you're thinking of like the nonprofit direction of things, there is, you know, here at UNLV, we have the Master of Public Administration program as well. And that program has like a nonprofit track in it. It has like a sort of a public administration track, but then it also has a nonprofit management track. also, but I definitely think the accounting would be really helpful either way, right? Like I said earlier in the presentation, you never really hear of an unemployed accountant. I think you'll be well on your way there. But yeah, I think the MBA, the Master of Public Administration, and or accounting would all be great programs for you.
All right, thank you.
It's great. Does anybody else have a question? Anything else that wasn't covered or is still a little bit unclear, maybe?
I have a question. So this is kind of like, maybe you won't be able to answer this, or maybe this is too broad of a question, but like, what's the likelihood of actually getting a fellowship? Because I know they're hard to get, and like, what sort of qualifications would like be really, would you want to sort of like focus on if you were trying to get a fellowship?
That's a great question, Samuel. They are incredibly difficult to get. I think we should say that at the top. You were 1000% right about that. I can tell you all that I applied for a couple. I was a pretty good grad student too, I think. I mean, I had a 4.0 the whole way through. I got parts of my dissertation published in well-respected peer-reviewed journals. I never sniffed one. They're really, really tough. I would say the big thing to focus on, though, if you're going in that direction is it's one thing to kind of to get into a PhD program. It's another thing to be really competitive for fellowships. And PhD programs are hard enough to get into as it is, right? Without sort of that extra layer. What I would say is to really focus on your research and to have research that I think is easily sort of explainable to other people. I mean, obviously it needs to be complex and things like that because it needs to be worthy of doctoral work, but it needs to be something I think that people can kind of grab hold of. And I also think that it needs to be something that is, kind of like forward looking and exciting and gets people excited, be the kind of program or the kind of research that a program would like to kind of brag about. And I don't mean that like in a cynical way to sort of pick your research in that way, but I mean to think about how you would describe your research in a way that would make other people excited and and other people might be able to see sort of what especially if there's like a real world application to it, right? So if you're looking at something like engineering, science, things like that, that's a little bit, I think, easier to translate into real world things than something like, say history or literature. Not that those things aren't important in the real world. I obviously think they are, having devoted my life to the study of literature. But I think sometimes for us on the humanities side, it's a little tougher for us to translate that. So I think those are good skills to have. Samuel, I don't know if that's a helpful answer or not, but I think that's probably the best answer I could give you given the circumstance.
No, I appreciate it. That's pretty helpful. I mean, like I said, I knew it was going to be hard to do. I just didn't know exactly how hard. And also, like, I guess I kind of like to follow up with that. So fellowships are just for PhD students, right? There's not fellowships for master's students.
I don't want to say there's not anywhere in the country fellowships for master's students, but I think generally speaking, yeah, they really are for PhD students. And keep in mind too that sometimes fellowships are like 1-year deals. Sometimes fellowships are, are for the entirety of your degree. So just because you don't get one when you walk in the door, it doesn't mean that you won't be eligible to pick one up later on either. So like, for example, here in the English department, the creative writing program, they have 2 BMI fellowships each year, and those are 3-year fellowships. But then there are also other fellowships here at UNLV that are given out through the graduate college, which are 1-year fellowships. And for those who aren't familiar with fellowships, these are awesome. Okay, it's all the benefits of a graduate assistantship, except you don't work. Right? So you still get paid, and you still get your tuition paid for. You still get a stipend, and then you just really focus on your research. It's awesome. So keep that in mind as well, that some things are 3 years, and then some things are sort of like tacked on fellowships as well, where you still might be doing some work. It might just be reduced load, or it might be that you just get additional monies. So I would say the big things with these is to really, really, really do your research. And the other big thing I would say really and truthfully is apply for every single thing you are eligible for. I have a friend who gets all kinds of stuff, and he's a wonderful scholar, and he deserves every last bit of it. And I asked him, because he was always some announcement about him winning something. I asked him several years ago, I said, look, I mean, you do really good work, don't get me wrong, but like, do you have a secret for this? Have you figured something out? Like, is there a trick to doing these applications? You've been doing it a lot longer than I have. And he said, I do have a trick. I apply for everything. And he said, really, really, truthfully, that's what I do. And so I took that advice and I just started applying for stuff. I applied for everything I was eligible for. I didn't win it. I didn't win it all by any stretch of the imagination, but I got a lot of stuff that I was kind of surprised to get. Like there were some things that I put in for that I really didn't think, that they would think much of what I had done. And I would get a letter, 2 months later, hey, congratulations, you're one of our finalists, or or we're going to give you, this award, or you've won, runner up in this thing or whatever. So I would say just cast as wide a net as possible, and don't psych yourself out. You know what I mean? Don't remove yourself from competition because you don't think your research is interesting enough, or you don't think it's, the kind of thing they're looking for. If you're eligible for it, apply for it. Make them tell you no.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, I wasn't gonna bring this up, but because you mentioned the Black Mountain Institute Fellowship, like my wife is actually one of those people.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, that's a very prestigious fellowship. Good for her. That's awesome.
I had one question in the chat. Someone asked, you mentioned that the GA positions can be competitive. So what are some other opportunities or things that people can get involved in or should be applying for if they don't get the GA position?
Sure. So a couple of things here to start with. One of them is that at least at UNLV and other schools have this set up as well. They may have different nomenclature. There's two different types of GAs. There's academic and non-academic GAs. So academic GAs come from your program. And so what that means is like, I was in the English program. So I was a GA in the English program. The English program hired me to teach some courses for them. Okay, and that's what I did as my GA. So if you're an academic GA, you do that through your program. That's the kind of thing where like research experience, the kind of research you want to conduct, your application package, making sure that you have really good letters of recommendation, really strong personal statement, all that best application possible to be at the top of their list. Then there are non-academic GAs. So we have, a couple hundred of these at UNLV, right? Most of our GAs are program GA or academic GAs, but not all of them, right? The library hires graduate assistants. The campus recycling center hires graduate assistants. The academic success center hires graduate assistants. We hire graduate assistants here at the grad college. Alexis is one of them. Alexis is living proof that people get these non-academic GAs. And it's the same deal, by the way. You get the stipend, you get the tuition waiver, you get the registration fee reduction, the health insurance, everything is the same. The only difference is who you work for. So I would encourage you to do a couple of different things in thinking about the GA. First of all is apply for academic and non-academic GAs. And apply as many different places as you can, right? Don't just do two or three GA applications, man. Apply everywhere, okay? Ask everybody you can, right? The second thing I would say is, check with the schools that you're looking to go to. See if they will let you reapply for money. Most schools will, some schools won't. So when I did my master's, okay, I applied 3 places. I didn't think I was going to get in anywhere. I got in everywhere. We can talk about imposter syndrome in another day. But nobody had any money for me that first year. 2 of the schools would not let me reapply. The 3rd school would. So that's where I went. And I kind of bet on myself. And I said, all right, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to do really, really good work. And then after that, I'm going to kind of make them give me some money. And I did that. I went in, I carried a 4.0 all through my first year. I did really well in my classes. I got to know faculty. And my second year, they gave me money. So I would say that. The other thing I would say, and then we'll talk about other methods of funding too, is if you're looking to do a master's, if you're not really interested in the PhD, or if you're just not looking to do that right now, Okay, if you're looking to do a master's, what I would recommend doing if GAs are really important to you is A, apply to places like UNLV that have tons of money for GAs in non-academic realms, because most of the non-academic GAs at UNLV are master students. Master students do get funded in some programs, but it's a little bit harder. So what I would look for as well is what are called terminal master's degrees. These are master's degrees that don't have PhD programs attached to them at that school, right? So I did a master's of English in a terminal master's program. There was no PhD, right? But what happens in terminal master's programs is they still need GAs. They just don't have PhD students sucking up all the funding, okay? So there were MAs and MFAs in my program, but no PhDs. So we got all the money because they still had to, that university still had a lot of freshman comp courses that they needed us to teach. So we did that. So I would say that in terms of other sources of funding, find out about scholarships, fellowships, things like that, both at the program level and at the university level. Find out sort of what other folks do. See if you can work as a student worker on campus. Really anything you can do to get your foot in the door. But I really think the big thing is to go to a place that will let you keep applying for money if you don't get it the first time. Because then it's a real chance for you to go in to build, especially if it's a new place to you, right? If you're going to go someplace different than UNLV and nobody knows you there. Get your foot in the door. Work with faculty, get to know people, and then see, and then reapply from there. Obviously, the FAFSA is important too. There are certain grants that you can get at schools, like UNLV has the Access Grant for graduate students. It's like $1 million worth of funding a year. You don't even have to apply for it. It's just based on your GPA and financial needs. So if you're in good standing with the university GPA-wise and you qualify, they'll just put the money in your account. That's why it's really important to do that FAFSA no matter what. Even if you're not going to take out loans, do the FAFSA, because you may end up qualifying for stuff that you didn't even realize you'd qualified for. Like the first time the Graduate Access Grant money went in my account, I called financial aid. I thought they'd made a mistake and I didn't want to have to give them money back later. And they were like, no, that's yours. You qualified for it. And it was like $1,000. So, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I will most assuredly take that. Thank you very much. I don't know what I did to get that, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And they said, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. You'll keep qualifying for it. So yeah, I would say, I would say that. So I don't know if that totally answers that, but I guess the biggest thing is I would say in sum is to cast the widest net possible. And try as many different places as you possibly can to find money for graduate school. And the last thing I would say on that front is don't be afraid to bet on yourself. It can be scary to do that. It was scary when I did it, but it worked. I can't promise you that it'll work, but I do think that and this I think brings me to another point, which I just want to make really quickly, is believe in yourselves. Don't psych yourself out. Don't say, I can't do this because of A, B, and C. You don't need a 4.0 GPA to go to graduate school. You really don't, okay? Like if you want to go to med school, yeah, you better come heavy with a 3.8 or a 3.9. And there are certain programs in graduate school, like if you want to go to, one of the Ivy League schools, if you want to go to like a top 10 program in the country, yeah, okay, 3.8, 3.9 is probably required, all right? But you don't have to have amazing grades as an undergraduate to go to graduate school. I had a 3.2 as an undergraduate. Okay. So I did, I was respectable, but I didn't set the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination. And I was able to get a master's and a PhD. So, and at good programs too. So I would say, don't talk yourself out of this. Do your homework, do your research, and determine, what you need to do. And then don't be afraid to ask people for help with the process. Go to the Writing Center. Get hooked up with the Office of Undergraduate Research. Use career services. Talk to your professors. Ask them for letters of recommendation. Do all of these things.
I'm going to add on to that really quickly if
Please.
I can.
Yes.
Don't think that your undergraduate degree limits which programs you can get into. I'm in the hospitality program here, but I did not do my undergraduate degree in hospitality. it's not necessarily a requirement for certain programs. Some programs will require that you have a certain undergraduate degree, others will not. Really look into it online, look into the requirements. Some of them will require, a range of undergraduate degrees, or you can have whichever degree you want, but you need experience in a certain field. It doesn't, the title of your degree doesn't need to limit where you can go or what program you can get into. So once you understand that and take that pressure off yourself, a lot of other doors will open for you. But just look online, look at the requirements. Like Dr. Beasley said a couple times today, just apply, just apply for a lot of stuff. You never really know. Don't limit yourself and don't tell yourself that you're not qualified for something, because chances are you are qualified. You just have a different title.
I think that's great advice, Alexis. Yeah, and even if you don't meet the requirements for a program, like the prereqs, which sometimes happens with people that are looking to shift from sort of non-STEM fields into STEM fields, like you still have a bachelor's degree, so you don't have to go get a second bachelor's. You can just take courses as a non-degree seeking student. You just can take like 3 or 4 courses, get the grades you need, and then present that to the program, and you've met the prereqs at that point. And in fact, sometimes that's even more helpful, because you're really showing them, hey, I really want to do this. I want to do this so much that I went and did extra coursework after my bachelor's just to get into your program.
We've got time for about one more question if anybody has one. Okay, well, before we officially end today's session, I just want to thank Dr. Beasley for all of that advice. Thank everyone for being here today. Again, this recording will be up on the Graduate College YouTube channel later, so if you want to come back to it and kind of check up on any of the information that was listed today, it'll be there for you. If you could also take a couple minutes and fill out this workshop feedback survey that I just placed in the chat, we would really appreciate that. Again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, and best of luck. Reach out to us if you have any questions, okay?